Mr. Chief Justice.
The senator from Colorado.
Thank you. I send a question to the desk for myself and Senator Schatz and Senator Menendez.
Thank you. The question from Senators Bennet, Menendez, and Schatz is to the House managers. If the Senate accepts the President's blanket assertion of privilege in the House impeachment inquiry, what are the consequences to the American people? How will the Senate ensure that the current President or a future President will remain transparent and accountable? How will this affect the separation of powers? And in this context, could you address the President's counsel's claim that the President's advisors are entitled to the same protections as a whistleblower?
Senate, privileges are limited. We have voted to impeach the President for, among other things, Article 2 of the impeachment is total defiance of House subpoenas. And the President announced in advance, I will defy all the subpoenas. What does this mean? It means there's no information to Congress. It means a claim of monarchical dictatorial power. If Congress has no information, it cannot act. If the President can defy, now, he can dispute certain specific claims, you can claim privilege, etc., but to defy categorically all subpoenas, to announce in advance you're going to do that, and to do it is to say that Congress has no power at all, only the executive has power. That's why Article 2 is impeaching him for abuse of Congress. That's why, for much lesser degree of offense, Richard Nixon was impeached for abuse of Congress, for the same defiance of any attempt by the Congress to investigate. But this is, and what are the consequences? The consequences, if this is to be, if he's to get away with it, is that any subpoena you vote in the future, any information you want in the future from any future president may be denied you with no excuses, announce in advance, I'll defy all the subpoenas. It eviscerates Congress and establishes the department, the executive department, as a total dictatorship. That's the consequences. Now, I want to also talk about, and the motives. The motives are clearly dictatorial. But I want to also take a point, since I have the floor, to answer a question, to comment on a question that Senator Collins and Senator Murkowski asked yesterday. And they asked about the question of mixed motives. What if, how do you define, how do you deal with a deed, with a president who may have a corrupt motive and a fine motive? And how do you deal with it? And Professor Dershowitz said, well, you have to look at the, you have to mix, you have to weigh the balances. Nonsense. Nonsense. We never, in American law, look at decent motives if you can prove a corrupt motive. If I am offered a bribe, and I accept the bribe for corrupt motive, I will not be heard in defense to say, oh, I would have voted for the bill anyway. It was a good bill. You don't inquire into other motives. Maybe you had good motives. But once the corrupt motive and the corrupt act was established, there is no comparison. All of this is just nonsense to point away from the fact that the President has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, and the defenders don't even bother really to defend. They just come out with distractions. He's been proven beyond a reasonable to have abused his power by violating the law, to withhold military aid from a foreign country, to extort that country into helping his re-election campaign by slandering his opponent. Corrupt? No question. Violation of the law? No question. Factually? No question. They don't even make a real attempt to deny it. Everything is a distraction, and the one chief distraction is once you prove a corrupt act, that's it. You never measure the degree of maybe had decent motives too. So Professor Dershowitz, in talking about that, in talking about the absolute power of the presidency was just absent from American law or any kind of Western law.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.